Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Valery Manyuchi, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Welcome back, everybody. Tonight, I have yet another amazing guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Valery Manyuchi, and currently based in Brisbane, originally from Zimbabwe. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. My story is basically I've had a very entertaining and transitional life throughout, because I got to this point in my life where I got to look back and appreciate all the stages of growth and all the different stages of where I've come from to where I am right now due to certain traumas and just life motions. And I feel confident enough to say that where I am happy. And I have embraced myself in all my entirety and appreciate the journey that I've walked through life. It's quite interesting because I don't know how many people have gone through this, where you come to a point where you have to either shed off or reconnect, which is shed off the child or reconnect the child to be able to shed that, to become the woman that you never knew that you could be, or never even thought that you could desire to be. So basically, that has been my journey of life. Outside of that, most of my life has been constant. I knew what I wanted to do from when I was a child, and I am still thriving and going for it as an adult at the moment. So professionally, I am enjoying my journey and just enjoying how technology and how exciting it is currently to be in the sphere of media and to be collaborating more, and things have changed over the years, and I would say now it's far much better to be in the media space. So I started my journey very early, as I said, which was from primary school. I started writing poetry and doing a lot of illustrations for my mom's books, who is a writer, because she noticed my talent and nurtured it very earlier on. And as a person, you're stubborn, and I wanted to try. I thought I could be a doctor, so I went to school and studied the science because I thought, doctors are cool, so I'm going to be a doctor. So that went past, and I did pretty well there, but my calling was still there to always be in the art, because I've always been a very creative person. That's when my journey started, when I went to art and design school in Zimbabwe, which is Ziva College. Spent some time there and quickly dove in from a very early age into advertising. And I pretty much knew the path I was going, and I was goal focused and oriented. So I was in the space and absorbing knowledge, and that was after college, absorbing knowledge, learning within the industry, with the goal of having to start my own agency in the near future, because the way we were taught from college, which was advanced diploma in graphic design and new media at the time, which was like 2007, it was something that was it was not as popular. So we had a lot of time to explore and dive into marketing, advertising, and new media in all that space, digest and take in all that knowledge, which propelled me to a very successful career as a graphic designer from that very early age. Started off as an intern for Saatchi and Satch International in Zimbabwe. And from there, I never looked back. Worked with amazing brands. That was, I think then it was called Zimsun, and now it's African Sun, which is one of the biggest chains in hotels in Africa, and worked with most of the biggest brands in Zim at the time, and went through a lot of other agencies. I was going through my learning process, trying to just absorb all the knowledge and just learning how to, more about the industry. And I did really learn a lot. So essentially, I've been in the industry for about 17 years. So that's a very long time. But that's mostly because I started off at 16. So yes, that was my journey.
And now, Real, you're on the other side of the world. Can you share the story behind the evolution of your brand name, RV&M, and how your journey in brand and creative strategy began? Who or what have been your biggest influences in shaping your career path?
My biggest influencer in shaping my career path, I would say, is my mother, because my mother was an entrepreneur. Because I remember looking at my mom when I was born, like she was in her 30s. From my earliest memories is looking at her and thinking, wow, I can't believe I was born by this woman. She's so amazing. It's like that's the memory I have in my head. And because she was at the time, it was not a very common thing for women, because they had an organization which was advocacy for an NGO that was advocating for child protection and protection for women. So I got, because I was the youngest child that she had at the time, at the peak of her career, she carried me along with her through that journey. So I learned a lot from being side by side to her, just watching her in her element, in her power. I pretty much, even now that I look at her, sometimes I'm just like I'm in awe, as because I remember I would just be in her office. I'll come from school and I'll be dropped off and I'll be in her office and she's working late, and she had a bed like set up for me for like if when she's working late.
Yeah.
So all those memories for me were just and I would be allowed to go, and like if the workspace was very accommodative of me. I guess it helped that the mom was the boss.
Awesome.
So I got to learn from everybody, like from receptionists, from the designers, from the artists that were working in the environment. So I really grew up in the arts, pretty much. That's where I was at. So that was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
That's awesome. So, in your creative process, how do you blend inspiration from all things life with strategic needs of a brand? Can you give us an example of a project where this approach led to exceptional outcomes?
So going back to, actually, I noticed that I missed part of your last question, which also ties to this. I created my brand, Reveal Studios, actually in high school. That's when I created the brand Reveal Studios, which is actually just a mash of my first and second name, which makes up Reveal Studios, and that's where the branding process started. um, because my mom just said, okay, so you already do this. Like, I used to write poetry, I used to just do illustrations and stuff like that. So I always thought it was going to be cool for me to have like a brand of my own. That's how it started.
Mm.
Progressionally, when I got into the advertising, I registered that brand actually when I was 17, and kind of just carried on through with that. And RVM Studio is actually, I got to a point in my development, which was when I came to Australia, which came with with its own set of struggles, because I had the advertising agency running in Zimbabwe, and
Right.
it was in 2016, and then international transition of business across was not as easy, and also coming
Mhm.
to Australia as a new face and with no background in, like, you don't know anyone. It's a whole strange place. I struggled a lot. I tried applying for jobs because obviously that's the first place you're gonna get security first, and that never worked out for me actually, um, for the longest time. And I just continued with my business, running it from back home, and helping the few people that needed my services here. How
Right.
it actually became a business was more by, I wouldn't say accident, transitioning it to here, but it was more of a case where someone needed help, and I was like, dude, that easy. And I just did it for them, and it wasn't meant to go anything beyond there. But then my business just went referral, as per referral, as per referral, as per referral. And then it just got to that point where I just need to better manage this. If I'm going to get into this, let me just create a platform. Yeah, it's that easy for me. Let me just create a platform where I can manage all my clients. And I did that. And yeah, it's just been going that way pretty much ever since.
That is pretty unique. I guess a referral business is the best kind of business you can ask for. So, as a social and digital producer, what are the most significant challenges that you face in today's rapidly changing digital landscape? And how do you stay ahead of the curve?
So my social and digital bridge title, that comes from the fun aspect. That is the RVM studio part of me, because I needed to separate the businesses. They came this time. I'm pretty sure a lot of people, when you hear niche, and the whole world was talking about pick a niche, just pick something. I struggled with that a lot because I am multi-talented, and I have very diverse skills. And asking me to pick one was, yeah, it was, to be very honest, that was actually one of the most challenging times of my life, having to put myself in a box. So
Yeah.
RVM Studio, which is pretty much the same thing as Review Studio. RVM Studio is just my name. Real Valery Manyuchi, just another version of it. Because I was now trying to discover myself. I couldn't figure out how to be the professional and be myself at the same
Right.
time. I
Yes.
it was such a hard time for me, especially to because I was so used to being in the advertising industry. That was straight. That was a professional space. There was no questions asked, and the environment was different, where it embraced, the artist in everything. But then
Mm.
now I come here. There's a certain presentation where people have certain, at face value, certain
Mm.
expectations. They wouldn't really expect you to like be on TikTok at that time, like be on
Yes.
TikTok and be all that active, and then still take you that seriously when you now
Yeah.
say, oh yeah, by the way, I am a developer. That was kind of, so I needed to, at that time I needed to separate the images, and I did what I knew best, created two separate images. It was a
Yeah.
challenge trying to juggle and keep them separate, since I am one person, since I am one person, the journey still goes on, but now I've just come to that point where it's, you know what, at the end of the day, what you see is what you get. It's either, we vibe or we don't. At the end of the day, we need to have a connection for us to be able to create magic at any
Mm.
point.
So, with your background in social work, how do you integrate social responsibility and welfare principles into your strategies for brands and communications?
So with my social work, which was, I had to tie it in somehow because I came here and I studied this whole new industry, which was
Right.
social work. So did social services, and since I had spent and invested so much time in it, um, chucking it away, like,
That
wasn't
makes sense.
wasn't an option, because I actually, because I've worked for like one organization since then, and I have had the same clients and have this great relationship with them, and I've had the opportunity to actually, within the space of being a social worker, to work in the arts with my clients, which was like
Right.
a light bulb moment, like, wow, we can tie this in together. um
Yes.
so I had to bring all the parts of me together, in
Yes.
that sense, because at the end of the day, I still work in the role, and that part of me, to be very honest, is quite fulfilling.
Mm.
As it's beyond just, because I love working with people and being able to support. I feel it's the same thing, branding and working with people, because it's about a journey to get a person to get to a point where it's a better version of a brand or a better
Mm.
version of a person. Because the one thing I love the most is working with people and being able to get to the point where I got, to be okay with who they are and be able to not split themselves, to be able to
Right.
understand that whoever it is they are, the best version of them, if they bring it out, someone,
Yeah.
no one is going to shut you out. Even if they do, that person wasn't meant for you, or even if those clients, um you can't brand yourself for everybody. It's great when, depending on the type of business you're running, but if your business is tied to a passion, or if a business is tied to you, is different from a drop shipping business. Drop shipping
Yeah.
business, that's a business that's either going to close in a month or a year. We don't really care much about that. We're going to make it look pretty, we're going to make it make sales, and then when it reaches its target, shut it down, move it over. But what I find is that most people, when they get into businesses, especially small businesses, it tends to be passion projects. It tends to be something
Mm.
that's close to them. And,
That means nothing
you know,
more.
that whole thing, it needs to mean something for you to not have that burnout, for you to
Yeah, that's
stay
true.
committed. It needs to mean something. So I find that the journey of getting someone to that point of of excitement and realization, and just working on something from ground up, that's
Mhm.
exciting for me. That's the
That's
exciting bit.
So, how do you balance data-driven decisions with creative intuition in your work as a brand and creative strategist?
um I'm a, weirdly enough, very practical person, and I'm actually very good with doing the numbers. With
Okay.
because at the end of the day, it's building a brand is about the goal. The goal at the end of the day is, because it's, we start from, okay, this is where you are. Where do you want to be? This is where you are. Where do you want to be? Or
Sorry about that. It was an alarm
yeah,
going
that's right.
off. I'll edit that out.
Let me put mine on
So,
silent. Oh, it's on
mhm.
silent. Yeah. So essentially, because with brands, it's more of this is the way I work, because I work on brands on a holistic perspective where,
Yes.
okay, this is where you are. We assess where you are. After assessing where you are, we look at your goal, where you want to go. And what's in the middle is we now have to work with what's in the middle to get you to where you want to be, and not the
Right.
other way around, where you are figuring it out and you let the course of nature take you to wherever.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
bends and it becomes a success, which is great, but goal setting is quite important. So because if you have an end goal, there will always be goals in the middle that you can
Yeah.
always channel and get to where you want to go. So I find decisions are easier made that way, because you know what will get you there and you know when you're messing up, pretty much. So, and it's
So,
just creating that hard line of saying, okay, this, let's not get distracted, this, let's shelve it and use
yes.
it for another time, but this is where we're going.
So, can you discuss a campaign or a project that you worked on that you're particularly proud of? What made it successful and what impact did it have?
I guess the campaign I've worked on so many, 17 years is quite a long time. um I would say it actually wasn't the most successful in
Right.
terms of what you would look at in as far as reach, but it was actually the difference it made. um the first brand, because I had been in advertising solely for a long time, so it was more working with big brands, and I'm talking that was Qantas and all those. But
Mm-hmm.
the smallest brand I first worked with when I branched out, I guess because it resonated, because it connected with what my mom used to do
Right.
at the work. I've actually forgot the name of the brand, but it was a company that used to work with women,
Right.
mostly disadvantaged women, and
Mm-hmm.
most controversially, sex workers in an
Right.
environment where it is not acceptable. And
Okay.
they were bringing support to these women, counseling, support, and any other stuff that they needed, because there was no place that they could go without feeling judged.
Right.
I was on the sidelines, obviously, because I was contracted to, capture videos and do, short adverts for awareness on certain
Okay.
issues that had to do with feminine issues that they were facing. And also the campaign also branched out to helping disadvantaged girls get sanitary wear. So
Mm-hmm.
it was such it was such an exciting project, because I just seeing lives being changed, even in the tiniest little
Yeah.
way, that meant a lot, in a way that, at the time, it just
Mm-hmm.
moved me. But because you're just contracted, but you're digesting all this information, because you have to comb through hours and hours of footage, listen to these traumatic stories, and in some cases, obviously you can't do anything, but then over time, you see people's lives being changed in real time. That, for me, yes, there was pretty much no celebritism, or like, oh, it went on the biggest billboard. It was just a
Mm.
social media campaign, and they were using just the resources and the funds they had. But
Right.
seeing the change was the beauty.
That was the impact. So, my last question for you is, as you look to the future, particularly with your interest in psychology and communication, what are your main goals and how do you plan to achieve them? And are there any specific areas of issues that you're really passionate about addressing?
Um, Passionate about addressing. I'm passionate about addressing. I'm more into self-awareness, and I feel that this is me. I just feel that people are not self-aware enough sometimes. We
Mm-hmm.
carry around a lot of unnecessary burdens. We carry a
Right.
lot of unnecessary baggages around. But I find
Mm,
sometimes it's the lack of self awareness. And self awareness,
right.
I say self awareness loosely, but it is such a broad term. Bringing it back, it was a salvation for me because I went through a very dark time in my life, and
Mm,
it brought me back where you acknowledge how you feel, you embrace
yeah.
it, and when you need help, you go find that help. And just self-awareness is just basically in the simple things, acknowledging I feel this and this is not permanent, because those
Yes.
feelings that we have, how we feel about ourselves, will affect how we move in the world. It will affect how we treat other people in the world. It will affect the products that we put out into the world. The more
Yes.
positive you are, the more you yourself are in love with yourself, it brings a whole different world of
Mm,
empathy. It makes you see in a space that's beyond yourself.
I love
Yes,
that.
it makes you a
And the
better
ripple effect
person, makes you
of
collaborate better.
real. Thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. I'm excited that you're one of our speakers for our summit here in Melbourne on the 15th to the 17th. Really looking forward to meeting you in person, but thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women from all walks of life, sharing their stories in business and entrepreneurship, health and wellness, family and relationships, creativity, social justice, and spirituality. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.